Hi, everybody. Welcome to Life Stories Podcast, People Helping People. I'm Shara Goswick, your host. My guest today is Steve Caton. Steve is the founder and CEO of Altezza. At Altezza, Steve helps business owners who are overwhelmed with sales by bringing in experienced help and simple systems so that they can grow without doing it all themselves. We talked about how he started the businesses that he has, what he learned along the way, and how he loves getting to help other business owners. This was a great conversation. If you've ever thought about starting a business, or maybe you are stuck in doing all the things that he talks about yourself as the business owner, this will be a conversation for you. Steve also has a podcast called Whiskey is for Closers. It's fun to listen to, even if you're not a business owner, and I encourage you to check it out. Thanks, Steve, thank you so much for being a guest. I'm excited to talk to you again. I know you have a business called Altezza Solutions, and I want you to
Altezza.
just Altezza. Sorry,
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
It's okay because the website says Altezza Solutions. That's
Okay.
because Altezza.com was already taken.
So I didn't dream that up. That's good.
Yeah, you didn't dream it up.
Okay. Well, tell everybody who you are and tell them about Altezza. Why did you start that company?
Yeah. I've spent my whole life in sales, and I started off having a business of my own with a friend. Started a company with a friend back in my 20s. Did that for about 11 years. Then I went into this chapter of working for other people for about 20 years. And in that chapter, I was doing sales for a lot of startup organizations. Think in terms of startup tech companies, startup professional services companies. I was really drawn to emerging growth and startup companies because I'm wired as an entrepreneur. So if you put me in a big enterprise type organization, I'm going to feel very constrained and confined. So I go where the innovation is and the action. And so I was in these smaller companies where you had founders that started a really cool company, had a great idea. They were doing sales for a while, and then they realized, hey, I got to get out of the sales seat and grow this company. So I need to bring in someone to do sales. And a lot of times that was me. That was the role that I was playing. And the more I did it, the more I saw a couple of patterns emerge. One, that was a really common problem, right? It's a really common thing to go from founder-led sales to hiring your first salesperson, and it's really difficult to do. And the difficult to do is really rooted in the fact that you really need a salesperson that's got some unique experience to be able to do it because they have to be able to build sales systems and processes and strategy, and they have to be able to sell. And it's hard to find. It's a little bit of a unicorn in the sales world. So I could do it. And I didn't realize it was that unusual that I could do it. But I realized that it was really hard for founders to find people like that. So that was just a seed that got planted as I did that. And then fast forward to 2020, I decided, you know what? I'm done working for other people. I want to start a business again. And my youngest kid was out of college, so it was good timing. There was a pandemic happening, which wasn't great timing, but
I remember that.
yeah. So I'd like to not remember it, but we can't
Right.
help remember it. But so then I decided to start a company that fixed that problem, that basically was designed to help founders get out of the sales seat and become that strategic leader they dreamed of being when they started the business, and bring really good, talented salespeople in who can do that and do that
Yeah.
well. Yeah.
That's awesome. Sales is not something a lot of people love. Like, I am one of those people. I don't like trying to sell. Why do you think that is? What is the issue?
Yeah, I'm working on some content on that actually.
Mhm.
I think I don't know if it'll be a book, but maybe an ebook.
Wow, yeah.
But because it is very common. There's a lot of people out there that do not like sales. I think my observation is there's a couple of maybe two or three different camps. One would be people just have a negative impression of sales. They think it's slimy. There's a lot of people that don't do sales the right way, and so
Right.
it gives sales a bad reputation. I mean, the used car salesman is the most common
Right.
example, but it isn't just in used cars. It's really just the high pressure salespeople that we encounter, and when we encounter those people, we're like, I don't ever want to be like that, and I don't ever want to do that, right? So there's that
Right.
piece of it. I just think it's slimy, and I don't want to do it. And then there's the group that would say, I don't like rejection. Like there's people that just fear rejection, and that's a real fear, right? And that's a legitimate fear that we all have at some level of just having people say no to us. And some people have a higher degree of that than others. And so then in sales, I mean, let's face it, if you're closing 30% of the deals that you're working, that's Hall of Fame level sales right there,
Right.
you know. So that means 70% of the time you're failing. And that is something that a lot of people are like, I don't want to do that.
Right. Does not sound like fun.
I don't wanna do that. So that would be the second group, and then the third group of people are just they just don't feel like they've got the right personality for it, right? They're very introverted. The idea of just talking to people all the time doesn't appeal to them. They're literally I worked with a lot of these people in software companies who were just head down, writing code, didn't wanna talk to people, loved just being in a dark room all by themselves writing, software, and when those people had to sell, they literally hated it. They couldn't wait to not have to do it anymore, but,
Oh,
if they were building a company, they kinda had to do it for a little while, so
right.
but they don't like it. So those are the things that I think are the most common reasons that people say, "I don't wanna do sales."
Yeah. For somebody that's listening that has a business who is having to do all of that and they don't wanna have to do it, you talked about, getting overwhelmed. What are some signs that you're getting overwhelmed in your job, in your business that you have, that you need to find people to help you do that?
Yeah, that's a really that's a pivotal question, right? Because I was speaking to a group of college students recently that are all in an entrepreneur program, and one of the things I told them, I said, "Look, if you start a business, just know you're gonna need to do sales for a while. You need to sit in the sales seat as the founder of the business because the lessons you will learn are so valuable, and there's no substitute for learning it through sales conversations, right?"
Right.
So I was telling them that, and then I was also telling them about talking about, okay, how long do you have to do it, and how do you know it's time to get out of it? So there's some things that happen, and that I kind of put them in the category of leading indicators and lagging indicators.
Yeah.
And so some of the leading indicators that you will be looking for as the founder sitting in the sales seat is the um the multitasking that we all do as founders begins to get to a point where you're not having enough time to do the revenue generating activities. So basically, if you look at your calendar, like I color code my calendar, Shara, so I can look at my calendar and go, okay, all the green meetings, those are all sales meetings. Those are sales conversations or revenue generating conversations. So if I see a week that's full of yellow and blue and red, but no green, that's not a good sign, right?
Right.
That means that I'm not getting to the revenue generating activity. So that would be a leading indicator. Another leading indicator is when you start to see your sales conversion rate go down. So there's a period of time that we go through where it seems like almost everyone we talk to is we're able to convert into a customer. And then all of a sudden, we start seeing that start to slip, right? And
Right.
suddenly, we're seeing that conversion rate go way down. Most of the time, what's happening there, it's not because all of a sudden you forgot how to sell or your product or service isn't compelling. It's really rooted more in that multitasking problem. So we're
Yeah.
so distracted by all the other things going on in our world that we're not spending the right amount of time in the sales conversation with a prospect, and so they don't ever convert. They never buy from us because we didn't
Right.
we didn't create enough value in their minds. So we didn't create
Mhm.
the sense of urgency or the emotional kind of appeal that helps them make a decision. So they just don't make a decision, or they go with somebody else. So that sales conversion rate, you'll see that begin to go down. And then lagging indicators, flat revenue, right? If we see growth and then all of a sudden that growth just plateaus,
Yeah.
then that's probably telling us it's time to get some help.
Yeah. I color code my calendar too because I am old and I have to see what's going on. It's just easier for me to know what I'm doing.
Yeah.
I know you talk to business owners. Do you like talking to business owners of large companies? Do you talk to business owners of small companies? Like what is the best kind of connection for you?
I mean, I like all of them, because everybody has a little bit of a different perspective to share, different lessons that they've learned. So if I'm talking to somebody that I mean, one of the business owner types I love talking to is someone who's built a business and then exited the business through a sale, an acquisition, or what have you, or maybe they've taken it public or whatever. Um, I love learning from those people who've done that.
Mhm.
There's just so much wisdom and knowledge there, and as a founder of a company that is, in the $1 to $2 million range, there's just so much I can learn from people like
Right.
that, and there's so many things I'm going through right now that I feel like, "Am I alone in this? Is this unusual that I'm having this experience, or is this just normal?" Right? And so
Right.
people like that can help me understand, "No, everything you're going through, completely normal." So
Yeah.
so I like that, but then I also love talking to other small business owners too who are kind of in the same place I am because, at some level, we're kind of a support group for each other,
Right.
you know?
Well, they probably all feel like that. Am I the only one going through this? Am I the only one that's they probably all feel like that. So I think that's awesome. I know you said you were speaking to a group of college students. Is that something that you do often? Are you speaking in lots of places or is it something you
Um
want to do?
I would love to do that. I am looking for more speaking opportunities, and then one of the speaking opportunities that just kind of fell in my lap recently, and thanks to a networking meeting I was in, was this opportunity to speak to college students. So there's an organization out there called Tech Bridge. They're
Uh-huh.
here in Atlanta, and they basically are doing programs for college students, specifically in settings where you have more underprivileged college students, right?
Okay.
So students that aren't going to the big universities, but they're trying to learn how to one day be an entrepreneur or how to start a tech company or something like that. And so that's kind of the group that was brought together. And
Yeah.
I loved it. I loved it because, students are very hungry and
Yeah.
eager and teachable and just they were a great
Awesome.
audience. Yeah, I'd do that a lot if I could.
Oh,
That's
that's great.
a ton of fun.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, I hope that works out. I hope you get more opportunities for like that.
Yeah,
So
thank
you have a podcast, Whiskey is for
you.
Closers. When
Yes.
did that start? When did you start your podcast?
We started that last year, I wanna say in the fall.
And it's going really well.
It is, yeah, it's been kind of amazing to see
Yeah.
how it's gone. I think the name has a lot of appeal,
Yes.
because it is
Yes.
different. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I was, trying to connect you with my son-in-law because he's a big whiskey fan and he's got his own business. And so yeah, I think he'd be so fun to talk to. He's a great guy. But
Yeah.
tell everybody what the podcast is about.
Yeah, so we're a sales company, so the general theme includes sales conversations, but we're not kind of the last thing I wanted to do is start another sales podcast. It's like
Right.
world doesn't need another one of those. So what I wanted to do was create more of an experience where you just have it. I wanted it to feel like, friends sitting around a campfire, drinking a nice glass of whiskey or a glass of wine or nothing, depending on their personal preference, but just having a conversation about the things that founders are going through, right?
Right.
And the theme is always about going from scrappy startup to scaling successful business and what are the lessons that, people learn along that journey. And so we invite founders to come in who have, like I said before, have already exited their business or ones that are still in the middle of the grind but it's all about storytelling. So we basically give people a chance to share the story behind their business and what have they learned and what's the scar tissue that they've earned that they'd like to share with others so people can avoid making that same mistake, things like
Right.
that. We just have a good time. It's
Yeah.
very relaxed, but also very practical in terms of just giving people wisdom that can be applied in their business, tomorrow if they need to.
Right. Is there a story that was shared that really just touched you? Something that was just amazing that you got to hear on there?
Oh man, well, there's been some really good stories and some cool businesses. So a couple of the ones that jump out at me, we had a couple of co-founders on there that started an ice cream company that is alcohol infused ice cream,
Oh my gosh.
which I thought was just wild. Never knew that
Amazing. Yeah.
something like that existed, but to hear the story about how did they stumble on the idea and then how did it become a company was really fascinating.
Wow.
That was one of my favorites. One of my other favorite episodes, we actually didn't have a founder on, it was just me and, my 2 co-hosts talking, and the title was "Shut Up and Sell." And
Yeah.
we literally just went on a rabbit trail about all the things that people hate about salespeople, which is,
Oh, wow.
they talk more than they listen, and,
Right.
it's just, we talked about all those kind of sins of selling, and it was
Yeah.
so much fun. We had a good time, and we've gotten some great feedback on that one.
Yeah.
And then we had a guy named, Braxton Kilgo on, I Believe in You, and he's got it's a business, but it feels a little bit more like a nonprofit in terms of
It's
the
very
missional
cool. Yeah.
aspect of it, and to hear his story and how that idea was sparked in him was very, inspirational for sure.
Yeah, I look forward to hearing more of his story, but it's incredible. So everybody brings a drink when they come to your podcast. Do y'all all bring something different? Do you have the same thing every time? Like, what's your favorite?
Yeah, we definitely mix it up. So, no pun intended there, but, I love bourbon, and, so I'm usually bringing some variety of bourbon. I've got a nice little collection over here in the corner of my office, and so I'll usually bring something different, every time, as will the rest of us on the show. And, we one of the things we love about bourbon is similar to wine in the sense that there's always stories behind it.
Mhm.
And so it's kind of fun to do the research and hear the story behind a particular whiskey or bourbon and kind of share
Yeah.
what we know about that. And then we have guests who do the same thing, and maybe they're into gin or maybe they're not into alcohol at all. And so they'll bring like coffee or, a tea or something and tell a story about that.
Mhm.
So it's fun to do it. We always start the podcast with, "Hey, what are you drinking today?" And yeah, it's fun. It makes for some interesting kind of sidebar conversations for sure.
Absolutely. So podcasting is very different than working in sales. What
Yeah.
do you love about both or each, I guess?
Yeah, I think interesting that you said that the podcasting is different than sales because for sure they are. But I think that the premise of both is very similar if you do it the right way. So I think it's like going back to the what we were talking about with whiskey is for closers. What we're trying to do is create an environment for authenticity and serving others, right? At the end of the day, we want to serve the audience somehow, help them, right? Well, sales done right is exactly the same thing. When you're doing sales the right way, what you're doing is connecting with other human beings. You're getting to know them. You're finding out what it is that they're potentially struggling with or what are they aspiring to, and then figuring out how you can help them. And so you're serving people. Sales done right is service. And we talk about that in that Shut Up and Sell episode. But I think that the f- so that's the similarity between the two that I love. And I really feel like that's one of the reasons why the podcast works is because we're not selling anything on the podcast, and we're not coming into it with some, clipped, very regimented agenda or interview format or whatever. We're just hanging out and getting to know people and then trying to figure out how we can create a conversation that helps other people, right? So anyway, I think the similarities there are striking and sometimes missed, right? I think especially nowadays it feels like authenticity is getting harder to find.
Yeah, absolutely. It's fun. I'll say podcasting is fun. I'm not a salesperson. They're great.
But you clearly like people, right?
And I love talking to people. Yeah, I love talking to people. I just feel guilty. I always anytime I signed up for any kind of because I've done it 100 times, the little business on the side, trying to sell makeup or trying to sell whatever, I couldn't do it. Anyway, so for somebody that's listening right now who has their own business and they are feeling overwhelmed and don't even know what to do next, they feel stuck. What is one piece of advice as a business owner you could give them?
Find a mentor,
Mm,
without question. For me, I knew when I went back into doing a business, I knew I needed a mentor from day one. So I went seeking mentors before I even launched the business because I knew
that's good.
I was going to need that perspective. And I talk to a lot of business owners that don't do that, and then they get to the place like you're describing where they're just overwhelmed and they're almost ready to throw in the towel.
Right.
Then I say, "Who's your mentor?" And almost every time, I don't really have one. So I think that's a huge miss.
Yeah.
We don't want to do this thing called entrepreneurship alone. So find a mentor, someone who's been there and done it. It could be a coach that you're paying, or it could be a friend, that is
Yeah.
just willing to invest. For me, it was a friend who was willing to invest, and that friend still invests, today in terms of helping me. But I also have coaches now who
Wow.
are in the business with me and really helping us to navigate things. So I just don't know how you could do it without them.
Sure.
Yeah.
I have a couple of people that have helped me, and I don't know that I went they're friends. I don't know that I went searching for a mentor, but that's what they've done. They've really kind of guided me when I've had questions. Like the first time someone didn't show up for an interview and I flipped my lid, I talked to her and she calmed me down and I realized, okay, this is not, this is okay. Life's going to go on. But it's so important to have somebody that can see from the outside maybe things that you can't and kinda guide you, and so that's great, that is great advice. Is there anything I have not asked you about that you want to tell me about before we go?
That's a great question. Yeah, I would say probably the question I don't get that often that is a topic I actually like talking about is why is it so hard to hire salespeople? Because most people who've done it have failed at it at least once, sometimes multiple times. And so people who have done that a few times, if we're having just a chill conversation, they'll be like, bro, why is it so hard? Why are salespeople so hard to hire? And I think it's a real I've thought about it for a long time because I've led salespeople. I've been a salesperson, so we have a whole team full of salespeople. But here's what I would say about it, and that is, salespeople are really difficult to hire because first of all, they make a pretty good interview, right? If you have a salesperson who can't interview well, then that's a problem, right?
Right,
But so they're typically a really solid interview. They're typically really good at just being able to have a very natural conversation. They present well. They often have a impressive resume, that you look at and you go, wow, they've done it. They've had great success in these other places. So surely that's going to work here. But it's kind of like the stock market, right? Past performance does not guarantee future results, right? And so with salespeople, I think the thing we have to remember is that it isn't just about the resume. It isn't just about the personality. It's about, is that salesperson the right fit for your business? And does that means are they a good fit for you? So is there cultural and
right,
core value alignment is so important with salespeople. And most of the time, that's not even on the table. We're not even looking at that, right? So when we miss the core value assessment, then what can happen is, yeah, we can get a great salesperson, but nobody likes them. No one wants to be around them, and
right.
that's not good.
That's not gonna work.
Or just because they were successful selling a different product or service, they may not be successful selling ours because of, they're not as passionate about it. I think the
Yeah,
best salespeople are super passionate and they really believe in what they're selling. And there may be something missing that doesn't allow them to get to that level. So that can be a problem. And then this is the one that's most common, and that is the business itself is missing some key ingredients that help salespeople be successful. And this is what shows up for the founder bringing in their first salesperson. A lot of times, the sales infrastructure is so weak or it's missing, and they just expect salespeople to figure it out, and that's never a good idea either.
right,
Yeah.
right. That makes sense. Well, Steve, this has been great. I've enjoyed talking to you, and, I'm gonna have all your information for people to find you. Thank you for being a guest today.
Yeah. Thanks for having me, Shara. It was awesome. Love the
Absolutely.
conversation.
Absolutely. Well, I will be in touch soon when this is done and ready to go. I hope you
Awesome.
enjoy the rest of your day.
Okay. Sounds good.
Okay. All
See
right.
ya.
Bye-bye.
Bye.